So there's been a pretty big shift in social media in the last week, mostly impacting British social media users. And that shift is a large number of big accounts closing up shop on Twitter and moving to other platforms like Threads and even Blue Sky. And the trigger for this move is a relatively simple one. Elon Musk, the owner of the website, has spent much of the last 2 weeks promoting far-right violence in Britain, supporting the whipping up of hate against immigrants, and even encouraging people towards what he sees as an inevitable civil war. This is, as Twitter has often become nowadays, wildly detached from the reality on the ground, where the far-right riots of 2 weeks ago have basically disappeared and been replaced by enormous anti-racism rallies. Hundreds of the rioters who, driven by lies about an event last month, attempted to set fire to hotels containing refugees, have now been rounded up, charged and sentenced, with jail sentences going into the years. But that hasn't stopped Musk from using his platform as a projection of far-right power. He promotes lies using his own accounts, shutting down any attempt to fact-check them and artificially promoting them above other content, as he does for other far-right users. Even overt white supremacists are getting their tweets and their profiles boosted in order to reach a wider audience. And this trajectory for Twitter has been apparent for some time now. Claimed free speech absolutist Elon Musk is in fact turning the entire platform into a propaganda platform for his own white nationalist far-right ideology, which has resulted in many news outlets and left-wing commentators having their accounts banned for daring to stand up to him, and the others being limited in various ways, from having delays put on links to their websites to having their tweets buried under a deluge of troll content from Elon Musk's fans. The writing was on the wall for this website years ago. I shut up shop there last year, moved on, and I have lost basically nothing from having moved my entire social media presence to other platforms. But one group which has clung to Twitter despite all this, and seems to be still attempting to, even if many members of their own in-group have started finally moving, is British politicians and journalists. And the reason for this is simple. They are addicted to being the people in the know and to having connections with those in the know. Even as their audiences have dwindled, as a third of the website has disappeared, even as their feeds fill up with troll content and artificially boosted white supremacist content, even as fake news is spread wildly in the place of real news, which is instead deprioritized by Elon Musk's algorithm. The claim that they are there because they want to stay abreast with breaking news is a myth. It's an excuse that they have made up to avoid the fact that the place that they have built their entire platform on, that they stake their credibility on for years now, has stopped being useful for the purpose. Instead of being the platform for breaking news, which we can rely on to stay up to date with whatever's the latest thing happening in the world, Twitter is the platform for the promotion of lies and conspiracy theories, where we can go when there's breaking news to read whatever lies, spin, and new incitements to far-right violence are being driven by the right in response to that news. Now, both politicians and journalists will claim that they are on Twitter in order to access the audience. But the reality is that Twitter is one of the smallest social media platforms. It's still much bigger than Threads and Blue Sky, but it is dwarfed in comparison to both TikTok and Facebook and Instagram. A tiny minority of people have Twitter accounts. And now, when you can't actually access tweets without having an account, the number of people who have access to Twitter content is significantly smaller than it used to be. the argument that a Twitter account is necessary in order to engage with a wider audience just doesn't stand up anymore. No, the reason that these politicians and journalists still have Twitter accounts is because they are addicted to the feeling of being in with the crowd. They have their follows from big names, maybe even ministers, maybe even news editors. They have those names following them, and therefore they're important. That's what they're addicted to. And they will tell you with a straight face that they are the brave truth tellers, whilst they continue to hide from the truth of what Twitter has become. They will tell you that they are on the cutting edge of news and current events, but they refuse to acknowledge the fact that the cutting edge of news and current events has moved. So many of these politicians will tell you that they are standing for change and standing up against the status quo, standing against vested interests and reactionary elements, whilst they continue to enable all of those things by remaining on Twitter as their primary platform, not even setting up accounts elsewhere so that people might access the same information from them on other outlets. The truth is, the only good reason anyone is still on Twitter is because other people are still on Twitter. It's the online equivalent of everyone still turning up to the same pub, even though the barman is a known lecherous danger, even though they know every time they turn up he creeps on them and endangers their friends. And it's all because, even though there's a perfectly good pub just across the road, no one wants to be the first one to go over there and sit on their own. They might miss out on the gossip, they might have fewer people to laugh at their jokes, but all it would take is one of them to actually take some kind of leadership role and go, hey, this bar isn't for us, let's try the one across the road instead. And the fact that none of these big name politicians and journalists have the bravery to stand up and do that, to me, demonstrates that they're not much use to listen to anyway. What am I going to learn from people who demonstrate through their actions that all they're capable of is sheepishly following the herd, instead of pointing at the reality all of us can see right in front of them and going, this isn't good enough, I'm going somewhere else. And a few of them have. Good on them. But the fact that this week we've seen a bunch more do it, and it took the person running the website, who has openly turned the website into a site for promoting white supremacist ideology, to himself start pushing white supremacist myths in their country, shows that they've had the blinkers on the entire time. Twitter is done. It's finished. It's in its death throes. There's nothing left to save. There is no resistance to be had by posting. You are not a brave freedom fighter by giving Elon Musk even more content and lending him legitimacy by remaining on that site. Just leave. You have plenty of other options. Try all of them. See what works. And if none of them work, maybe instant short form social media content isn't actually for you. And all you really had was an addiction to being the one in the know. And maybe you should just unplug and go to the pub with some friends.